The sun rose slowly over the valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Birds chirped softly, and the river's water sparkled as it moved over smooth stones. The valley was surrounded by tall pine trees that swayed gently in the morning breeze. It was quiet, calm, and safe. A group of women had lived here for many years. They loved the peace and freedom of their valley. They had one rule that everyone followed without question. No men were allowed. Far above the valley, a figure appeared on the trail. He walked steadily, carrying a worn backpack and a small folded tent. His clothes were dusty and his boots were old, but he moved with determination. His name was Rowan. He had traveled for many days through forests and hills, searching for a quiet place to rest. The valley seemed perfect. Rowan stepped carefully onto the soft grass and paused to look around. He could hear the river flowing nearby, birds singing and leaves rustling in the wind. Everything seemed peaceful. He took a deep breath and smiled. Finally, he had found a place that looked safe. However, someone was watching. Mara, a young woman from the valley, had noticed Rowan immediately. She had dark hair tied back and bright eyes that noticed everything. Mara's heart raced when she saw a man in the valley. She had never seen this before. The rule was clear: no men could stay. She whispered to herself, "A man? Here?" Mara ran quietly toward the center of the village, keeping Rowan in sight. She wanted the elder Leora to know right away. Leora had lived in the valley for many years. Her hair was silver and her eyes were steady and kind. She kept the valley safe and strong. When Mara told her about Rowan, Leora frowned. "A man in the valley is dangerous," she said. "He cannot stay." Meanwhile, Rowan had noticed Mara watching him. He smiled politely and lifted his hand in greeting. "Good morning," he said softly. "I do not wish to cause trouble. I only need a place to rest." Mara felt a mix of curiosity and worry. She walked closer but kept a safe distance. "The rules are clear," she said firmly. "No men are allowed. You cannot stay here." Mara led Rowan to the edge of the village. The morning sun fell softly on the river, and the wind carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. She walked quickly, her steps careful and controlled. Rowan followed silently, his backpack heavy on his shoulders. "This valley has rules," Mara said firmly, stopping at the edge of the clearing. She turned to face him. "No men are allowed here. You must leave immediately." Rowan bowed his head slightly, showing respect. "I understand," he said quietly. "I am not here to harm anyone. I only need a safe place to rest. One night. That is all I ask." Mara studied him closely. She could see the weariness in his eyes, the way his shoulders sagged from days of travel, yet she could not ignore the rule. "The rule is the rule," she said, her voice strong but gentle. "If you stay, the peace of this valley will be broken. You must understand this." From the shadow of the trees, Leora stepped forward. Her silver hair shone in the sunlight, and her calm eyes rested on Rowan. "Mara is right," she said. "This rule has kept our valley safe for many years. A man cannot stay here. It is not a question of trust. It is a question of safety." Rowan looked at her respectfully. "I do not ask to stay in the village. I only wish to camp at the far edge of the valley near the river. I will not disturb anyone. I promise to follow every rule you have." Leora's eyes narrowed as she considered his words. She had seen many travelers pass by, but none had ever asked politely or offered to follow rules. Something about Rowan felt different. He did not speak with arrogance. He spoke with care and honesty. Mara frowned but nodded. "If you stay, it will be at your own risk," she said. "You will not enter the village. You will not touch the crops or animals. You will stay at the far side of the river. One night only. If you break this, there will be consequences." Rowan smiled faintly and bowed his head. "I understand," he said. "Thank you. I will not cause trouble." Mara turned and walked back to the village, keeping her eyes on him. She felt nervous. The rule had been broken already, even if he stayed only at the edge. How would the other women react if they saw him? Rowan set up his small tent near the riverbank. The river flowed steadily, and the sound of water hitting rocks was soothing. He gathered some dry wood and built a small fire. The smoke rose into the cool morning air. He cooked a simple meal, careful not to make too much noise. From the trees, Mara watched him. He moved quietly and carefully. She could see that he treated the land with respect, and that made her heart feel less worried. He did not rush or grab. He moved as if the forest and the valley belonged to everyone, not just him. As night fell, the valley glowed in the golden light of the setting sun. The river sparkled and the trees cast long shadows. Mara could not stop thinking about him. He had followed the rules, but still he was a man in the valley. The very presence of him tested the peace they had built over years. She remembered an old note from Arrow, the founder of the valley. It was pinned to the wall of Leora's small home. It said, "60s to run, at 61 we hunt." Mara had read it many times but never fully understood it. That night, as she watched Rowan's fire flicker in the dark, she wondered if this stranger was part of the meaning behind the words. Mara finally turned away from the river and returned to the village. She felt uneasy but also curious. Rowan had not broken the rule completely, yet he had changed the valley with his presence. The women would notice him, and soon she knew they would have to decide what to do next. In the quiet night, Rowan sat by the fire. He watched the river and listened to the sounds of the forest. He did not know what the future held, but he felt a small hope. Perhaps for just one night, the valley could be a safe place for him to rest, and perhaps he could show that trust and kindness could exist even in the most careful of places. The next morning, the valley was quiet and peaceful. The sun rose gently, and the river glimmered as it moved over smooth stones. Birds sang softly, and the wind carried the scent of pine and fresh earth. Rowan had slept well, feeling safer than he had in days. He stretched and packed his small belongings carefully. Mara had been watching him from a distance. She wanted to make sure he followed the rules. When she saw him folding his tent and tidying the campsite, she felt a small relief. He had done everything exactly as he promised. Rowan noticed Mara standing at the edge of the riverbank. He gave a polite nod and smiled. "Good morning," he said. "I hope I have not caused any trouble." Mara shook her head. "You have followed the rules so far," she replied. "That is important, but remember, you must stay at the far edge of the valley. You may not come closer to the village or the homes." "I understand," Rowan said. "I will respect your rules." The river flowed softly between them as they stood quietly for a moment. Mara had mixed feelings. Part of her wanted to leave immediately to make sure he stayed far away, but another part of her was curious. He did not act like other men she had seen in stories or in passing travelers. He seemed careful and thoughtful, almost as if he belonged to the valley in some way, even though he clearly did not. After a while, Mara spoke again. "If you wish to stay, you must do more than follow the rules. You must show respect for the land, for the trees, for the animals. You must understand that this place is not yours, not even for a night." Rowan nodded seriously. "I will do whatever you ask. I want to learn." Mara studied him. She decided to give him a small chance. "There is a stream behind the trees," she said. "You may wash there. Do not touch the flowers, do not disturb the small animals, and stay out of the village. If you follow this, you may stay until the end of the day." Rowan carefully packed his fire and carried his small bucket to the stream. He washed quietly, paying attention to the river and the sounds around him. He made sure no stones were moved and no plants were broken. Mara watched silently, impressed by his care. As the day passed, Rowan explored the edge of the forest near his camp. He noticed small animals moving quickly through the underbrush and birds flying between the trees. He picked up fallen branches to clear the path and even helped a small deer trapped in some twigs. Mara saw this from afar and felt her worry ease. He was not just careful, he was kind. By mid-afternoon, Mara returned to him. "You move carefully," she said. "You are not careless like others who have come here. But you must understand one thing. One mistake can change everything. The valley depends on trust, not just rules." Rowan looked at her sincerely. "I understand," he said. "I will not make a mistake. I will respect this place as if it were my own home, even though I know it is not." Mara nodded slowly. She felt a small sense of hope. Maybe the valley could accept someone different, someone who showed respect and care rather than power or control. She remembered Arrow's note again. 60s to run at 61, we hunt. Perhaps this stranger was meant to be here in some way she did not yet understand. As the sun began to set, the valley glowed in warm light. Rowan built a small fire and cooked a simple meal. He kept everything neat and clean. Mara watched from a distance, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and caution. That evening, as night fell, the valley remained peaceful. The river moved gently, the trees swayed, and the stars appeared one by one in the dark sky. Rowan sat quietly by his fire, listening to the sounds of the forest. Mara returned to the village thinking about what she had seen that day. He had followed the rules. He had shown care and respect. And even though he was a man in a place where men were not allowed, Mara could not deny that he had brought a sense of calm and trust with him. For the first time, she wondered if the valley's peace could survive a visitor who was different, a visitor who did not threaten but instead added something new. The next morning, the valley was quiet as usual. The sun rose slowly, spreading a soft golden light over the trees and river. Birds chirped cheerfully and the scent of pine filled the air. Rowan had spent the night by his small fire, sleeping under the stars. When he woke, he felt rested and ready to continue his journey. Mara watched him from a distance again. She had grown curious about him. The way he moved, the care he took, and the respect he showed to the land made her think differently. Maybe he was not like the strangers she had imagined. That morning, Mara decided to approach him more closely. She walked along the riverbank until she was near his tent. "You move quietly," she said. "You do not disturb the forest or the river." "That is good," Rowan smiled politely. "I try to respect the land," he said. "It is beautiful and it deserves care." Mara looked at him for a moment. She noticed the lines of fatigue on his face, but also a calm strength in his eyes. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Why this valley?" Rowan sat by his fire and gestured for her to sit across from him. "I have traveled far," he began. "I have seen many villages, forests, and rivers. I have met many people, but none live like this valley. It is quiet, peaceful, and full of life. I wanted to see a place that feels true, that feels safe and real." Mara listened carefully. She had never heard a man speak like this. Most men she had met only spoke of power, work, or travel. Rowan spoke of respect, care, and life itself. She decided to share a little of the valley's story. "This valley has rules," she said. "Arrow wrote them many years ago. She wanted safety for everyone who lives here. The most important rule is that no men are allowed. Men have caused problems before. That is why the rule is strong and clear." Rowan nodded. "I understand. I will follow your rules. I only want to learn from your ways." Mara studied him. She could see that he was serious. "If you want to learn," she said slowly, "you must understand more than words. You must see, listen, and respect. That is how we live." The river flowed quietly nearby, and the sunlight danced on the water. Rowan looked at the river and then at Mara. "I want to understand," he said. "I will do my best." For a long time they sat in silence. Mara watched Rowan carefully. She noticed how he moved his hands gently, how he touched the stones and plants as if they were important. He did not rush or grab. Even when he ate, he made sure nothing was wasted. Mara began to feel a small change in her heart. Perhaps he could be trusted. Perhaps the valley's rule of no man was not enough to measure a person. Trust, she realized, came from actions, not just rules. Later that afternoon, Rowan shared stories of his travels. He spoke of forests full of deer, rivers with fish, and villages where people lived differently. Mara listened, fascinated. She had never left the valley, and his stories brought the outside world alive. Rowan also spoke about the lessons he had learned. "I have seen how care and patience can solve problems," he said. "I have learned that rushing often brings harm. I try to live with that in mind." Mara felt a quiet respect for him. His words were not just stories. They carried experience and understanding. She realized that even though he was a man in a place where men were not allowed, he was not a threat. He was different. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the valley, Mara stood and prepared to leave. "You must remember," she said, "rules protect this valley. Even if I trust you now, the others may not. You must be careful." Rowan nodded. "I will follow the rules. I will not cause harm." That night, Rowan sat by his small fire again. The stars appeared one by one in the sky. He listened to the forest and the river, feeling a quiet sense of peace. Mara returned to the village, thinking about the day. She realized something important. Rowan's presence did not bring danger. It brought a new kind of understanding, a chance to see that kindness and respect could matter more than fear or rules alone. The morning air in the valley was crisp and fresh. Sunlight filtered through the tall pine trees, casting gentle shadows on the forest floor. Rowan had spent another peaceful night near his small tent by the river. He had woken early and began preparing his simple breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and herbs floated through the air. Mara walked along the riverbank, watching him carefully. She had grown more curious about Rowan with each passing day. The way he respected the land and the animals made her reconsider her first fears. He was careful, gentle, and honest. But she knew the valley's peace could never be taken for granted. That morning, Mara decided to give him a small task. "There is a path through the forest that needs clearing," she said. "Some branches have fallen and small rocks block the way. Can you help?" Rowan nodded and smiled. "I will do my best," he replied. He worked quietly, moving fallen branches and lifting small rocks with care. The birds sang above him and a soft breeze brushed his face. Mara watched from a distance, pleased by his patience. Unlike other travelers, he did not rush or complain. He respected the forest as if it were alive. Later, while walking along the path, Rowan heard a soft cry. He followed the sound and discovered a young deer trapped in a cluster of bushes. Its legs were tangled in the twigs and it struggled nervously. Rowan knelt down slowly. "It's okay," he said gently. "I will help you." Mara, who had followed quietly, gasped. She was afraid he might scare the deer or get hurt. But Rowan moved carefully, freeing the animal one branch at a time. The deer looked at him for a moment, then bounded into the forest. Mara felt a deep sense of relief and admiration. Rowan's actions were kind and thoughtful. When they returned to the riverbank, Mara spoke softly. "You move with care. You do not take more than you need." "That is rare." Rowan shook his head. "I learned long ago that harming others, even in small ways, can create problems. Respect is more important than speed or strength." Mara looked at him thoughtfully. "Many men I have met never understood that," she said. "Most only think of themselves or power. You are different." The peace of the valley, however, was about to face a small test. While gathering water from the river, Rowan noticed smoke rising from the far side of the forest. He frowned. "There is a fire," he said urgently. Mara ran to him. "How bad is it?" she asked, worry in her voice. Rowan pointed toward the trees. "It is small now, but it could grow fast. We must act quickly." Together they ran toward the fire. Rowan guided Mara and other nearby women to form a line and carry water from the river. He moved with calm authority, directing everyone efficiently. Mara noticed that he never yelled or pushed. He simply showed the safest and fastest way to stop the fire. After some effort, the women, with Rowan's help, managed to put out the flames. The forest was safe and the river sparkled quietly as if nothing had happened. Mara looked at Rowan, her respect growing. "You saved the forest," she said. "You helped everyone." Rowan smiled quietly. "I only did what I could," he replied. "The forest belongs to all of us. Protecting it is not a choice. It is a duty." That evening, Mara returned to the village thinking about what had happened. She felt a change in her heart. Rowan was not only careful and respectful, but he had also proven himself in action. He had faced a challenge without breaking the rules or harming anyone. In the quiet night, Rowan sat by his small fire, listening to the river and the wind in the trees. He felt a small sense of belonging. Even though he was a man in a place where men were not allowed, he realized that actions mattered more than rules alone. Mara, lying in her home, thought about Arrow's note once again. 60s to run at 61. We hunt. Perhaps the valley had waited for someone like Rowan to show that respect. Courage and care could coexist with the rules. The first challenge had passed. The valley remained peaceful, but now, Mara and the other women began to see that trust, not just rules, would shape the future of their home. The morning sun rose slowly over the valley, filling the trees with light and warmth. The river sparkled as it flowed over smooth stones, and birds sang cheerfully. The forest seemed peaceful again after the small fire had been put out the day before. Rowan had slept well by his small tent, feeling more connected to the valley than he had before. Mara walked to his campsite, holding a small basket of herbs she had gathered. She was thoughtful and quiet. The events of the previous day had changed her view of Rowan. He had followed the rules, helped the forest, and guided the women in putting out the fire. He had shown kindness and courage, and Mara could not ignore that. "Good morning," Rowan said politely, noticing her approach. "Good morning," Mara replied. She paused and looked at him carefully. "You helped the valley yesterday. You did not break any rules, yet you did more than any stranger could have done." Rowan bowed slightly. "I only did what I could. The forest belongs to everyone. It is our duty to protect it." Mara nodded. "Arrow once wrote a note for this valley," she said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. slightly worn from years of handling. It read, "60s to run, at 61 we hunt." Rowan read the note slowly. "I have seen it before, but I do not understand it fully," he said. Mara smiled softly. "Arrow meant that life has seasons," she explained. "We must run, work, and grow when we are young. When we are older, we hunt, guide, and teach. The valley survives not just because of rules, but because of wisdom and experience. You helped us see that." Rowan listened closely. "I think I understand now," he said. "Even rules must be guided by care and understanding. Strength and patience are both needed." Mara's eyes brightened. "Yes," she said. "You respect the rules, but you also respect life." That is what Arrow wanted. Later that day, Leora gathered the women of the valley to speak. Rowan stayed at a respectful distance, listening quietly. Leora held Arrow's note in her hand and looked at the group. "The valley has rules to protect us," she said. "But we must also see when actions show respect and courage. Yesterday a fire tested us and we survived because someone helped us without breaking the rules. That someone showed what Arrow meant. We must learn from it." The women murmured in agreement. Some were still cautious, but many began to see that Rowan's presence had been helpful. He had proven himself not by speaking loudly or demanding respect, but by acting carefully and kindly. Mara returned to Rowan later in the afternoon. "The valley sees your actions now," she said. "They are cautious, but they are beginning to trust you. You have not broken the peace. You have strengthened it." Rowan smiled gently. "I am grateful for the chance to stay here, even at the edge. I will continue to follow the rules and help in any way I can." Mara thought for a moment. Perhaps the valley needed this lesson. Sometimes rules alone are not enough. They must be guided by understanding and respect. "You have shown that." Rowan looked around at the forest, the river, and the trees. "I hope that I can continue to help," he said. "I want to show that even a stranger can become part of a community if they act with care." The sun began to lower in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the valley. Birds returned to their nests and the wind whispered through the trees. Rowan sat quietly by the river, cleaning his small tools and preparing a simple meal. Mara watched from a distance, feeling a sense of calm. The valley had survived a challenge, and a new understanding had begun to grow. That evening, as the stars appeared one by one in the sky, Mara thought again of Arrow's note. The valley was safe because of rules, but it was strong because of trust, courage, and wisdom. Rowan had shown that balance, and the valley had learned an important lesson. Peace could be protected not only by rules, but by respect and careful action. The valley was alive with the gentle sounds of morning. Birds sang, the river flowed steadily, and sunlight filtered through the tall pine trees. Rowan had woken early again, as was his habit, and had begun gathering water and preparing a small breakfast. He moved quietly, careful not to disturb the peace of the valley. Mara approached him along the riverbank, carrying a basket of herbs and wildflowers. She had grown more comfortable with Rowan's presence. The first fear she had felt when seeing him had slowly turned into curiosity, and now it was beginning to feel like trust. "You are up early again," she said softly. "The valley feels different with you here." Rowan smiled politely. "I enjoy the quiet. It gives time to think and work. I want to help in any way I can." Mara nodded. "You have already helped more than I expected. Not just with the forest or the fire, but with the way you respect everything. That matters here." Over the next few hours, they worked together along the river. Rowan carried buckets of water for the gardens, helped gather herbs, and cleared small branches from the walking paths. Mara noticed how carefully he moved, never stepping on small plants or frightening the animals. "You move as if you belong here," she said quietly. "But this place is not yours. You must remember that." Rowan looked at her sincerely. "I understand. I only wish to help. I hope to earn your trust, not take anything from this valley." By midday, other women of the valley had come closer to see Rowan at work. They watched silently, curious but cautious. Some whispered among themselves, wondering if he could truly be trusted. Mara noticed their hesitation and spoke gently. "See how he works. He does not harm the land or the animals. He follows the rules. He only helps." One of the elder women, Leora, approached them. She looked at Rowan carefully. "You have shown care and respect," she said. "That is more important than age or strength. The valley has rules, yes, but actions matter as well. You have proven yourself, though you are not one of us." Rowan bowed slightly. "I am honored. I will continue to help and follow every rule." As the day passed, Rowan and Mara spent more time together. They shared stories of the valley and of the lands beyond the forest. Mara had never left the valley, but Rowan spoke of distant rivers, mountains, and villages. His stories were filled with lessons learned, not just adventures. Mara listened intently, fascinated by the knowledge he carried. By late afternoon, Rowan guided a small group of women in building a new footbridge over a section of the river where the stones were slippery. He showed patience and care, explaining each step and letting the women try the work themselves. Mara watched, impressed. He never took control, he only guided, showing respect for everyone's abilities. The bond between Rowan and the women grew stronger with every small task. They began to see him not as an intruder, but as someone who could help the valley without breaking its peace. Mara felt proud and relieved. The first fear she had carried was gone, replaced by understanding. As the sun began to set, the valley glowed in warm golden light. Birds returned to their nests and the river reflected the colors of the sky. Rowan sat by the fire he had built near his small tent, cleaning his tools and preparing a simple meal. Mara came to sit near him holding a small basket of berries. "You have changed many things here," she said quietly. "The women see that you are not a threat. They are beginning to trust you." Rowan looked at her with calm eyes. "I only wish to help. That is all I have wanted from the beginning. If I can show care and respect, perhaps that is enough to be part of this valley, even for a short time." Mara nodded. "You have shown that actions matter more than rules alone. Arrow's note is true. Wisdom and respect are as important as rules and strength. You have brought both." The stars began to appear in the night sky. Rowan looked up, feeling a quiet sense of peace. Mara returned to the village, thinking about the day. She realized that the valley had grown stronger because of trust, courage, and care. Rowan's presence had not broken the peace, but had added something new, a bond that could last beyond rules and fear. The valley remained safe, the women strong, and a new understanding had begun to grow. Rowan, once an outsider, was slowly becoming a part of their lives, not by taking but by giving respect, care, and wisdom. The morning sun rose gently over the valley, painting the river and trees with soft golden light. The valley felt alive and calm, more peaceful than it had ever been. Rowan had woken early, as usual, and began gathering water and preparing a small fire. His movements were quiet, careful, and respectful as always. Mara walked to the riverbank carrying a small basket of herbs. She watched Rowan as he worked. Over the weeks, she had grown to trust him completely. The first fear she had felt when he arrived was gone. Now she saw him as someone who belonged, even though he was a man in a place where men were not allowed. "You are up early," Mara said softly. Rowan smiled politely. "I like the quiet mornings. It is the best time to think and work. I hope to help the valley in any way I can." Mara nodded. "You have helped more than anyone expected, not only with the forest and the river, but with the way you respect everything. That matters more than rules sometimes." The day passed with work and conversation. Rowan helped the women repair fences and gather firewood. He guided them gently, showing patience and care. The women began to see him not as an intruder, but as someone who could strengthen the valley. Even the elders, once cautious, now nodded at his efforts with approval. By afternoon, Mara suggested a small walk along the river. Rowan followed quietly, listening to her stories about the valley's past, its traditions, and the lessons of Arrow's note. 60s to run, at 61, we hunt. Mara explained that Arrow had meant that life had seasons. Each season had its work, and each season required wisdom and courage. Rowan listened intently. "I think I understand now," he said. "Even rules need wisdom. Even actions need care. The valley is protected by both." Mara smiled. "Yes, you have shown that through your actions. You followed the rules, but you also showed respect and patience. That is what made the difference." Later, the women gathered by the river to prepare for the evening meal. Rowan helped quietly, carrying water and setting up cooking areas. He worked with calm efficiency, never imposing, never demanding. Mara noticed how naturally he had become part of the valley's daily life. When the work was done, everyone sat near the river, enjoying the warm light of the sunset. The stars began to appear one by one in the sky. Leora spoke to the group. "This valley has rules to keep us safe," she said. "But it is our actions that make us strong. Yesterday and in the days before, we have seen that even someone from outside can teach us lessons if they show care, respect, and courage. Mara looked at Rowan. He met her gaze with a calm, steady smile. "You have shown all of that," she said softly. Rowan shook his head. "I only did what I could. The valley belongs to all of you. I only followed the lessons I have learned." That night, as the fire burned gently, Rowan sat quietly by his small tent. He looked at the stars above and listened to the river flowing nearby. For the first time in many months, he felt truly at peace. Mara returned to the village thinking about the journey the valley had taken. The presence of one man who had arrived quietly and followed the rules had brought more than curiosity and concern. He had brought understanding. He had reminded the women that trust, courage, and care could strengthen their home in ways rules alone could not. In the days that followed, Rowan continued to live at the edge of the valley. He never crossed the boundaries of the village, but he became part of its life. He guided in small ways, helped when needed, and shared stories and knowledge without taking authority. The women grew to trust him completely, and the valley felt stronger, safer, and more connected than ever before. Arrow's note remained on the wall, a reminder of the past. But the valley had learned a new lesson. Rules protect, but understanding unites. Rowan had arrived as a stranger, but he left a lasting mark of respect, care, and harmony. The valley remained peaceful. The river flowed, the trees swayed, and the stars shone bright above. Life continued stronger than ever, with trust and wisdom guiding the hearts of all who called the valley home.